Welcome to Promo Insiders, an ASI media podcast that covers the topics that matter most to the promotional products industry. I'm CJ Mitica, and I have a question for you. Can a promo product save a life? The answer is yes, and we have the proof today. Barrett Hubbard, CEO of DLA Promotions, joins me to discuss his company's relationship with Donate Life America and its unique model that supports organ, eye, and tissue donation. So Barrett, thanks again for joining us. And I'm curious, we have seen single cause organizations become a growing trend, but they're still kind of few and far between. They're definitely unique and definitely interesting. I think DLA Promotions is a very interesting example. And to some of the details, you're a wholly owned subsidiary of Donate Life America. 100% of your order proceeds goes to supporting organ, tissue, and eye donation. And so I think it's a great cause and something that, as an organ donor, like I fully support as well. I'm just curious, how did DLA get started and how did its mission get codified?
Well, first, thanks for having us today. And, one of my favorite quotes is everything is the way it is because somebody changed the way that it was. And I'm not sure who said that, but it's a terrific quote. So the story behind this is Donate Life America had back when they first started 57 chapters, and I won't call them all chapters because there's some different sort of structures, but what they call OPOs or Donate Life chapters around the country. And all of them needed promo and purchased promo as part of the promotion of creating donors for organ, eye, and tissue donations and registering donors. And they use that around the country. It's a very local thing. Think of your DMV, who's another one of our clients. So the executive director of Donate Life America is I think a very forward-thinking gentleman named David Fleming. And the two providers that they had before certainly shared some of the proceeds back. But David started to think about what would happen if he brought it all in-house. And sort of the interesting story is that both of those two providers were ultimately purchased by the same company. And so at that point, David decided he was going to go ahead and got his board of directors, and they agreed. And essentially what we've created is what will be an annuity stream that will support organ, eye, and tissue donation for years to come, essentially using promotional products that we sell. And again, the structure is what you just said, that we're essentially a for-profit promotional products distributor. And our sole shareholder is Donate Life America, who's a 501c3.
So I just want to remind everybody who's watching, we're live streaming this. We're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn. So as we go through, if you have comments, you have questions for Barrett, you just want to share your enthusiasm for organ donation, feel free to post your comments and questions. We'll be happy to talk about them or answer them. So Barry, again, I think this is a really unique model. And again, 100% of the proceeds go to support this mission. How do you structure the company to make this work?
Yeah, and as I mentioned, so we're a for-profit entity, and we're going to run it like any other, what we hope ultimately is a high-performing promotional products distributor. So that's step one. And in step two, we're going to market it just like a high-performing distributor with some, of course, sort of, I'll call it twist, that you're saving lives by doing this. So we have a board of directors that's a subset of the board of directors of Donate Life America. We have 3 people from sort of what I'll call the organ, eye, and tissue community, and we have 2 people from the promotional products business that are part of that oversight board. And we simply have a model for profit that we're trying to target a 10% return on sales, operating margin, whichever you prefer to call it. They're essentially the same calculation, but that's sort of our model for profit. So while it doesn't sound like much, obviously, if you take the promotional products business, and I'll give you kind of where we're headed and almost where we are by doing the math, we want to be essentially our first sort of mini big goal is a $10 million top line organization that throws off right about $1 million a year to the bottom line. We expect by the end of 2023 to be about 25% the way there in the first 18 months of our journey.
What I'm curious about is, so I mean, $1 million, at least, off the 10 million goal and beyond that, that's a lot of money. What can Donate Life America and the organ donation mission do with that sort of money?
Well, and boy, we could talk about this for a long, long time. And I'll start by saying I'll call it a weak expert at the ins and outs of organ eye and tissue donation. I certainly know the Donate Life organization well, but essentially every year in the United States, and there's some just sort of facts and figures, there's about 2.8 million people that pass away. And of that, about 16,000 of them are eligible to be an organ, eye, and tissue donor. And of that, about 12,000 actually end up being organ, eye, and tissue donations. There's 100,000 people in the United States. So if you metaphorically think of the largest football stadium in this country, the Rose Bowl, the Ohio State University Stadium probably holds 90,000, 97,000, one up in Michigan. Those are all waiting breathlessly, as I like to say, for an organ so they can survive. And so there is still a ton of work to be done relative to the life-saving work of registering donors. And that's one of the solutions that they do in the core mission. But there's really a lot more to it beyond that they work on in terms of advocacy, patients. It is interesting to be around the organ donation world because it is built with amazingly uplifting moments, but also combined sometimes with some very tough situations. But all of those are really ultimately are trying to save a life. And sometimes we say save a life, but and somebody told me this too, that they're really not saving a life. So if you take a child that needs a heart transplant or a kidney transplant to survive, and they live and they grow up to have kids, you've actually created another generation that you wouldn't have had before. And so it's a very, very different kind of approach to doing it. But Donate Life, again, does terrific things. And you can find a ton of information at donatelife.net. And it tells all the story of all the things they do.
So I think you may have answered my question in part already, but how do you raise awareness for DLA promotions, and how do you sell your story and what you're trying to accomplish?
Well, it's an interesting thing because we're roughly about 18 months old. So we spent the first, probably 6 or 7 months sort of trying to get the right people on board, get our group together, get our technology in place, start to develop our message. We had a client base to service, and the Donate Life community was part of that client base, and we started studying the structures, to take care of those. And so we're really at the very early stages, including events like this, of sort of promoting and telling everybody about DLA promotions, and that you can truly, what we say, buy swag and save lives. That it's a different kind of thought process that somebody can go, I can use the same supplier, I can get the same product, I can have it delivered seamlessly through an elegant technology platform, and my promotional product spend is going to be delivered back to hopefully save a life. And that's a pretty good message. I'll tell you a little bit of an anecdotal story, but it's true. So we got an entree very early on in our in our life to a major insurer. This insurer has probably 15, 20,000 employees, does several $1 billion of business. And so we went up to visit them, and they have a team that does all the procurement for their promotional products, about 5 or 6 people, and of course an executive that heads it. And we went in there, and we had the chief marketing officer, we had the director of cause marketing in that team, and we did a proposal essentially for them. And at the end of that, one of the ladies who was part of the team that does it, she said, sort of in a quiet way, "This is the best idea I've ever heard." And I would suggest that this company probably spends between $4 and $8 million a year on promotional product spend. So if they, not that we want it all or could get it all, but certainly enough. But at $2 million, there would generate $200,000 back to doing good. And one of my favorite things when we're talking about this, that's a great story for your internal shareholders, and that's a great story for your external shareholders, and that's a great story for the recipient of whatever the product they're going to get. And that's, again, I think they love that entire story.
Yeah, that is a great story. Also, I think it brings up a key point, is you're not just producing like Donate Life America swag or organ donation swag, right? You're working with clients across the whole spectrum of industries.
Correct. And one of the beautiful things about this project, and this, whether it was by accident or by design, that by the nature of Donate Life, we are a one phone call away from every major hospital system in the United States, because all of them have an element of organ transplantation nearby. And additionally, it goes into, and this is sort of I say cool thing, and with all humility, but but it connects to all the major buyers, right? So if we say, what are the biggest buyers in promo and across the industry by industry group, we kind of know healthcare, pharma, colleges and universities, nonprofits. This echoes very, very well, and all of those orbit the Donate Life community. Mm-hmm. And so we would expect over time, again, healthcare industries of all types we'll talk to. And then pharma, where there's a ton of drugs around organ transplantation for rejection and a whole bunch of other things. So all of those are fair conversations. And another cool thing we do is that if your spend is enough with us, Donate Life America will recognize you as a partner in Donate Life America. So all of a sudden you're truly giving back and getting the recognition for doing that. Another thing we do, that swirl behind me, is part of that Donate Life logo you can see there. And we give that little swirl award to any of our buyers to remind them that what they're doing is saving lives by purchasing from us. And again, it's a very, very powerful statement that reminds them that you really have this virtuous cycle of good, and yet you're doing business, and there's nothing wrong with that. And sort of in a weird way, we all know in the promo business, there's a couple of themes, right? Suppliers are trying to give back where possible. Distributors are trying to sometimes give a portion back. People are talking about sustainability and recycling, and we're really just taking that, frankly, to the very, very maximum level. We're talking about, for lack of a better word, sustainable parts of humans, and we're talking about giving all of it back. Again, people sometimes ask, how can you give it all back? We still run the financials in good, prudent structure. So when we say we're giving $1 million, we might have where we give 800,000, but we keep 200,000 on our balance sheet so we can do what we need to do and keep raising money. So that's one of the things I get a question a lot all the time is, how do you give it all away? We don't really give it all, but we certainly are doing that. Eventually it will flow through. It's just a matter of the rate it'll flow through.
Got it. So when you meet with these prospective clients, do you have to sell them on the good of organ donation, or do they just inherently get it and why it's so powerful and beneficial?
Yeah, I think we have to do two things. I think we have to, I'm a big believer when you talk to any, I'll say, major buyer of promotional products, the first thing you need to do is you still have to prove yourself and show that you understand the business, that you understand the logistics around it, that you understand their brand, that you can do all the things that the promotional products industry and distributors want to bring to the table. The absolute win, no doubt, is the idea that the swag that we sometimes know, and again, the industry has talked about this for years, ends up either in the trash or somewhere you don't want it. At least it's going to do something good. And certainly that drives a lot of the interest in this. And like I said, certain markets, I would think, again, it's a very attractive model. We have a line we occasionally use, whether it's for if we were recruiting salespeople, which again, we want to have salespeople across the country. And we think this is a much more energized way to add value to what you're doing. And whether it's them or clients, we want them to feel good about it and be energized about it. And one of the things I sometimes say is, do you want your promotional products to buy somebody another beach house or car, or would you like them to be saving a life? And that answer, of course, is a very rhetorical and obvious answer, but it kind of drives home the point of what we're trying to do and the mission we're trying to create.
Yeah. So I'm curious, you've been an industry veteran, with somebody's been in the industry for over a decade now, but I guess newer to the organ donation ecosystem. I'll share a personal anecdote for myself. Over a decade ago, I was doing some freelance projects in addition to working at ASI, and one of them was about organ donation. And I sat in on a couple meetings of heart transplant recipients, and it was incredibly powerful. Amazing stories. I was blown away, and as soon as I did that and completed that assignment, like I signed up to become an organ donor just because it left an imprint on me. And I'm curious for yourself, again, someone who's sort of new to this world, like what have you learned that you didn't know before you started at this company?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think a couple of things I've learned. First is, and this is a funny one, the numbers I just went through about how many people pass away in the United States and how many can be organ donors. You have to die in a hospital. So I think there was, and that's just me as a layman. I did not understand that. So broadly, you have to be pronounced dead in a hospital to even become an organ donor if you're assuming you've already registered and you're ready to go. And that was one of those things that I just didn't comprehend. I go, you think about how many people have events, but if you're not pronounced deceased in a hospital by a medical directive and you're alive when you get there, then they cannot use your organs, which again, I think that's why the pool, there's 100, I believe this is right number, 166 people, 166 million people that are registered organ, eye, and tissue, which sounds like a lot,
Right.
but it's still not quite enough. So that's one of the things I think I've learned. I was trying to think some of the others that as I've been able to sort of get my head around it a little more, but I find it, again, not only is it amazing, the technology with which, for example, the logistics of moving organs and getting them to the right time in the right place, the interaction with the donor family and the recipients and the people that sort of bridge those two, the intersection of those two incredible people, right? One has lost somebody and somebody is going to save their life. And that is an amazing thing. We went last year. This was a funny thing. Not funny, but it was interesting, to the transplant games. And the transplant games happen every couple of years, and they're put on by a different group, not by Donate Life America. But so we went out, and it's all people that are either recipients or they've been donors or they're waiting to be a donor. And they had a contest out there that was a singing contest, basically a what's it called, American Idol kind of thing, but for transplant people. And one of the guys sang a song that said, "I have 3 and you have 2." And he explained at the beginning of the song how he wrote it was, when you get a new kidney, they don't take out the other one. They just put it in there with it.
Really?
And there's, I was say, one of those things that I went, what? And the song was, of course, "I have 3, you have 2." And it's because when they put that kidney in there, they don't disturb, I guess, the other kidneys, organs that sit in there. I couldn't believe that, but that's true. It's not the same for hearts, but I didn't understand that for kidneys. So there's just certain things like that I've picked up over the time that you're around these folks, that is just, again, they're just uplifting and amazing, and they are thankful, and they're very passionate. It has also been interesting, like yourself, where you were around it. We've run into probably 5 people in the supplier network or in clients that either have been directly or very nearly affected by a heart transplant, somebody that needed a kidney. Living donors is a whole new world that's starting to open up. Being a living donor, there's some fantastic, again, things they're doing in that regard as well.
Very interesting. And I'm curious about just the role of promotional products in supporting this mission. So you're using your company, DLA Promotions, the money just from those normal orders to help fund this mission. But there's also the role of promotional products, and you have some on display right behind you. And we obviously ASI, our industry, talks about all the time about the power of promotional products to do good, to influence behavior, to do all sorts of different things. So how can actual promotional products help with this mission?
Well, I was making a couple of phone calls, and certainly I will tell you, for example, these bracelets. These are Donate Life bracelets that we make, and we probably I say make and then produce, and then they're distributed out into the Donate Life community, 500,000 of those a year. And then there's a ton of other things that are gone out, including like the T-shirts behind me. There's some very, very creative projects that they work on. The one that up here says "Save My Human" was one targeting dogs.
Cool.
That it was cool. It's very cool because the whole dog adoption SPCA, there's a really strong correlation of people being interested in that, but they just turned it around and said "Save My Human." I was talking to one of the, I'm going to call her a director or coordinator at one of the OPOs in Indiana, and I asked her this sort of question, and she said to me, it's really simple. He says, we try to get a promotional item that gets people to come up and talk to us and then turn them into an organ donor. And they do that at great scale. They also do that with DMV. So another huge market for us is what a lot of people call them a lot of different things across the country, but I use Division of Motor Vehicles. There's a million different names for them. Those are obviously big places, and there's a ton of stuff they do inside of those, from floor decals to clipboards to pens to shirts they're allowed to wear. This is the very end, by the way. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this, of Donate Life Month. We're at the very end of the month at which we celebrate organ and tissue donations. And just as a quick one, if you're not and you're listening to this and you go to registerme.org, you can take care of all that on your own. And I thought of that and I had to mention that. But it's that simple, that they create activity, they create interest in talking to them. And once they can talk to them, the probabilities of converting them to a donor are very, very high. And again, sometimes it's as simple as that bracelet. It does that. We also, of course, get the ones where people are waiting and they're either raising money sometimes via T-shirts or other things like that. And we'll do T-shirts for them or whatever the case may be, that they're then trying to raise money for the transplant and those kind of things. And we get those kind of situations as well.
Okay, fantastic. So just to wrap up, is there any sort of information or message that you want to leave our listeners and viewers with?
Like I said, on one hand, we're just a promotional products company. Distributor. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to try to do that really well. I think we have a fabulous story to tell, both in terms of inside the industry and inside of people who may want to be part of this, and then externally as well. And like I said, on one hand, this is a cool mission for me. I sort of joke, I'm going to do this for about 7 to 10 more years. And hopefully maybe I get a ticket to heaven for doing something good for that. I probably need that. But there's just so many wonderful things that circle around it that is feel good. Every now and then I'm on a lot of the Facebook pages and I watch some of the things that go wrong and the things that we got problems to deal with and things happen. But it does feel good to sit there and essentially watch the ticker going, right? So as our revenue rises, I just do that mental math of what we're starting to give back. And that's really fun to do. And I imagine one of our projects down the road will be to put that on our Facebook page, that it's just this constant rising number of what we're giving back by buying swag. And I just think that's a super cool thing for us.
Yeah. Well, we wish you the best of luck. Seems like you're on your way to building a presence, reaching your goal. So I encourage our viewers and listeners to sign up to be an organ donor. First of all, it's for a great cause. You're doing a world of good, and we'll be watching to see how DLA Promotions does in the future. So Barrett, we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you all.
Well, thank you everybody for watching, for listening, and we hope you have a great rest of your week.